Before the foundations of the earth were laid, God was. Before the sun burned its first flame, before the mountains were shaped, before time itself began ticking away, the moments of history, God was. And still today, He is all-powerful, all-knowing, ever-present, sovereign over the heavens and the earth. Yet in this fast-paced world filled with shiny distractions and temporary pleasures, many have abandoned the ancient path. Many are chasing after the hand of God instead of seeking His face. They want the gifts, but not the giver. They want the blessings, but not the presence. They want success without surrender. And that, dear friends, is the great tragedy of our time. We have become a generation obsessed with outcomes. We want healing without humility, breakthrough without obedience, prosperity without prayer. We rush to the altar not with hearts broken in reverence, but with hands wide open, demanding more. God bless me, God promote me, God enlarge me, but who will cry out, God, I want you, even if the blessings never come? Who will say, take everything from me, but don't take yourself? The deepest hunger of the soul is not for things, it is for God. And until we put Him first, nothing else will ever satisfy. Let me tell you something truthfully and plainly. God is not a vending machine. He is not a silent force, waiting to dispense rewards to the most demanding voices. He is a holy, righteous, jealous God, and He desires to be first, not second, not third, not squeezed in when it's convenient. He wants to be the heartbeat of your day, the fire in your bones, the song in your night. He wants to be the first thought when you rise and the last whisper when you sleep. Not because He is desperate for attention, but because He knows that your soul cannot survive without Him. You may think you're hungry for a breakthrough, but what you're really starving for is God Himself. And don't be deceived, just because your hands are full doesn't mean your heart is satisfied. Just because life looks good on the outside doesn't mean the soul is alive on the inside. People are climbing ladders to success, only to find them leaning against the wrong wall. They have houses but no peace, relationships but no intimacy, possessions but no purpose. You see, blessings without God are like rivers without water, like fire without heat. They look promising, but they cannot sustain. They cannot save. They cannot satisfy. So hear me now. Seek God first, not because He will bless you, but because He is the blessing. He is the source. He is the treasure. He is the reward. Those who seek Him lack no good thing, not because they are always rich or famous or healthy, but because they have found something far greater. They have found communion with the Most High. They have found the One who knows their name, who bottles every tear, who numbers every hair. When you find God, you find peace that the world cannot offer and the devil cannot steal. God is not impressed with empty words or showy religion. He is not moved by routines and rituals. He is moved by a heart that seeks Him earnestly, relentlessly, sacrificially. A heart that says, God, even if you close every door I hope for, I will still worship you. Even if you say no, I will still kneel in awe. That is the heart that God draws near to. That is the heart He honors. That is the life He transforms. You may be waiting for a miracle. You may be pleading for open doors, for healing, for a shift in your season. But I urge you, before you seek the miracle, seek the miracle worker. Before you seek the door, seek the one who opens and shuts according to His perfect wisdom. Before you seek healing, seek the healer. Because sometimes what you think is a delay is actually a divine invitation to go deeper. Sometimes God withholds the blessing so you can discover the Blessed One. How many times have people run to God in crisis, only to walk away when comfort returns? How many seek His help when their back is against the wall, but ignore Him when the road becomes smooth again? God is not a lifeboat you abandon when you reach the shore. He is the ocean itself. He is the reason you live and move and have your being. To treat Him as a convenience is to miss the greatest relationship you were ever meant to have. Do you want to be truly blessed? then build your life around God, not around what He can give you. Make Him your foundation, make Him your priority. Wake up early not to chase wealth, but to sit in silence and hear His voice. Fast not to manipulate His hand, but to empty yourself and say, God, You are enough. Study not to gain knowledge alone, but to encounter the living God in every line and every truth. That's what it means to seek God first. It is to rearrange your entire life around Him, not just fit Him into the gaps. Some of you are wondering why everything feels empty. Why the success didn't fulfill you. Why the applause didn't heal your wounds. Why the relationship didn't fill the void. It's because you were created to walk with God, not just to be blessed by Him. His presence is your home. His word is your compass. His voice is your anchor in the storm. And until He becomes your everything, everything else will always feel like not enough. Don't be fooled by this world's version of blessing. Fame fades. Riches vanish. Beauty withers. But the one who walks with God walks in a blessing that cannot be shaken. You may not have the spotlight, but you'll have His favor. You may not be the loudest voice, but you'll have His whisper in the quiet. You may not have all you want, but you'll have all you need. And that is the real blessing, to walk in step with the Almighty. People chase after God's hand because they have not seen the beauty of His face. They have not tasted the sweetness of His presence. But once you have, nothing else will do. Once you have stood in His glory, everything else loses its shine. Once your heart has been ignited by His fire, you can't go back to lukewarm living. That is why God sometimes strips us of the very things we thought we needed, so that we might finally see that He alone is our portion. So if God removes the blessing, will you still worship? If He delays the answer, will you still trust? If He says wait, will you still serve? That is the test of true faith. Not what you do when He gives, but what you do when He withholds. The mature soul says, even if He slays me, yet will I trust Him. Because the goal is not comfort. The goal is closeness. The goal is not abundance. The goal is adoration. The goal is not the blessing. The goal is God. And I say to you now, with urgency in my spirit, return to the secret place. Return to that quiet room where you first heard His voice. Return to the simplicity of loving Him for who He is, not for what He can do. Let the fire of hunger consume you again. Let the thirst for righteousness overwhelm your soul. Let every idol be cast down. Let every counterfeit be exposed. Let your heart cry out not for more things, but for more of God. That is the beginning of true revival. You don't need a bigger platform, you need a deeper altar. You don't need more followers, you need more time on your knees. You don't need more affirmation, you need more intimacy with God. Because when you seek God first, blessings will chase you. Doors will open that no man can shut. Favor will surround you like a shield. But those things will be byproducts, not your pursuit. The pursuit must always be God alone. So I urge you today, realign your life. Examine your motives. Ask yourself the hard questions. Do I love God, or do I just love what He gives me? Am I building His kingdom, or asking Him to build mine? Am I surrendered, or just selective? These are the questions that shake the soul. These are the questions that lead to true transformation. And only when we face them honestly can we rise into the fullness of what God has prepared for those who love Him. You don't need to chase after every open door. You need to chase after God. You don't need to compete with the world. You need to commune with the one who created it. You don't need to fear missing out. You need to fear missing Him. Because when God is first, everything else finds its proper place. Peace reigns. Purpose awakens. Blessings come not as idols to distract, but as tools to glorify Him. But when God is not first, even blessings become burdens. There is a kind of poverty in this world that no amount of riches can cure the poverty of a soul disconnected from its Creator. a soul that hungers for more but feasts on dust, a heart that reaches for blessings like empty hands chasing the wind, never realizing that what it truly longs for is God Himself. There is no substitute for the presence of God. Not wealth, not recognition, not comfort, not even religious activity. You can surround yourself with everything the world calls good and still feel hollow if God is not the center of it all. When God is not first, everything else becomes misaligned. The heart becomes restless, the spirit anxious, the mind distracted. That is why so many feel exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. They are carrying burdens they were never meant to carry. They are chasing promises while ignoring the promiser. They have turned faith into a transaction, seeking God only to get something in return as if He were a means to an end. But God is not a tool for our ambition. He is the purpose, the source, and the destination. To seek God first is not just about giving Him the top spot on your to-do list. It is about surrendering your entire existence to His will, His timing, and His truth. God does not compete for your attention. He waits. Patient, but not passive. Loving, but not indulgent. When you ignore Him, He doesn't chase after you with noise. He allows silence to settle in, so that your heart might finally recognize its own emptiness without Him. It is in that silence, in that holy stillness, that the voice of God becomes loudest. But you must be willing to silence the world, to quiet your desires, and to listen not for what you want to hear, but for what God is truly saying. There is no greater pursuit than the pursuit of God. Not because He is hiding, but because He is holy. His presence is not discovered through casual glances or hurried prayers. It is found when the soul becomes desperate, when you drop every idol, every distraction, every false hope, and fall to your knees with one cry, God, I need you more than I need anything else. That's when the heavens begin to open. That's when the soul begins to revive. That's when clarity replaces confusion and strength replaces weakness. So many are waiting for God to change their situation. But God is waiting for you to change your position, not your physical posture, but your heart posture. Are you seeking God with convenience or with conviction? Are you coming to Him as a guest in your life or as the one who owns your life? There is no halfway surrender. There is no casual seeking that unlocks deep intimacy. If you want the fullness of God, you must give Him the fullness of you. And understand this, sometimes God delays the blessing not to punish you, but to protect you from loving the blessing more than you love Him. He sees how fragile our devotion can be. He knows how quickly we forget when things get easy. So in His mercy, He withholds not to break us, but to build in us a faith that cannot be shaken by seasons or circumstances. Faith that says, even if nothing changes, I will still seek you. Even if doors remain closed, I will still trust you. Even if the blessing never comes, I will still serve you with all that I am. That kind of faith cannot be faked. It is forged in fire. It is born in the wilderness. It grows when God seems silent, when prayers feel unanswered, when hope is tested again and again. But in that wilderness, something beautiful happens. You stop seeking the blessing and you start seeking God. And when you find Him in the dry place, you discover that He is the oasis you didn't know you needed. You discover that His presence is the blessing. Not what He gives, but who He is. The true sign of a blessed life is not abundance, it is alignment. Alignment with God's will. Alignment with His purpose. Alignment with His timing. And that kind of alignment only comes through consistent, deep, passionate seeking of God. Not just on the mountaintops, but in the valleys. Not just when things are going right, but especially when they're falling apart. Because it's in those moments, the moments of pain, confusion, and stillness, that the soul is most open to transformation. Do not measure your spiritual life by your material conditions. There are people with full bank accounts and empty souls. There are others with nothing but God, and yet they are overflowing with peace, with strength, with purpose. Because when you truly seek God, you tap into a power that the world cannot replicate. You receive joy that circumstances cannot destroy. You find purpose that no one can steal from you. That is what it means to be blessed. That is what it means to walk in divine favor. But beware of distractions. The greatest enemy to a God-first life is not always evil. It is often the good things that become idols. It is the career that consumes your thoughts, the relationships that demand your energy, the goals that steal your focus. None of these things are wrong, but when they replace God, when they rise above Him in your heart, they become chains. They may look like blessings, but they slowly rob you of your intimacy with the one who gave them to you. God must be sought with urgency, not passivity, with hunger, not apathy, with fire, not formality. A seeking heart is not content with yesterday's encounter. It yearns for more, not more things, but more of God's presence, more of His truth, more of His refining. Because the one who seeks God is never stagnant. They are always growing, always stretching, always moving towards something deeper. And that depth becomes their foundation, their compass, their identity. God is not calling you to a life of endless striving for His approval. He is calling you to rest in the assurance that you belong to Him and that seeking Him is the only thing that will keep you grounded in a shaking world. Everything else will shift, people will change, seasons will come and go. But when God is your foundation, you will stand firm. You will not be tossed by every wind. You will not be crushed by every hardship. You will not be seduced by every lie. The path to blessing is not paved with manipulation or performance. It is carved through surrender. It is walked with humility. It is led by obedience. When you stop demanding and start listening, when you stop rushing and start waiting, when you stop pursuing results and start pursuing God, you will see doors open that no effort could ever force. You will see peace settle into places that used to be filled with anxiety. You will see a joy rise up that makes no sense to the world. This is the secret the world cannot comprehend, that the greatest treasure is not in what God does for you, but in who God is to you. The one who finds this treasure no longer worries about outcomes. They are no longer tossed by opinions. They are no longer afraid of loss, because they have anchored their hope, not in blessings that fade, but in the eternal God who never changes. So wake up your soul, call it to attention, shake off the numbness that life has tried to place on your spirit. Refuse to live another day casually connected to God. Seek Him with tears if you must. Seek Him with fasting. Seek Him with relentless devotion. Let your pursuit of God be the loudest testimony of your life. Let your hunger for Him speak louder than your success, your status, or your reputation. Let the fire in your heart declare to the world, I seek God first not because I am perfect, but because I know I am nothing without Him. There is coming a time when every foundation will be tested, when storms will blow and fires will rage. What will hold you then? Not the blessings, not the things you acquired. Only God. Only the relationship you built with Him in the secret place. Only the trust that was forged in the furnace of seeking. That is what will carry you through. That is what will keep you standing when everything else falls. You want to live a life that is unshakable? Then let God be your first pursuit, your daily bread, your unrelenting desire. Not just in the morning, not just when problems come, but every moment, in every decision, in every dream. Seek Him not just with your lips, but with your life, and watch how everything else begins to change. Not because God finally decided to bless you, but because you finally discovered that seeking Him was the greatest blessing of all. The world will always try to convince you that fulfillment lies in what you can achieve, accumulate, or control, but the soul knows better. The soul was never designed to be filled by things, it was created to be filled by God. And until you truly seek God with your whole heart, you will continue to feel the ache of emptiness, no matter how full your hands may be. You see, success without God is merely noise. Comfort without God is a trap. Prosperity without God is a path that leads to spiritual poverty. The enemy of your soul doesn't always come dressed as destruction. Sometimes he comes disguised as distraction. Not to destroy you outright, but to detour you from the one pursuit that actually matters, seeking God above all else. There are moments in your life when you must stop everything and ask yourself, what am I truly chasing? Am I chasing peace or the Prince of Peace? Am I chasing breakthroughs or the one who breaks every chain? Am I chasing answers or the one who is the source of all wisdom? Many people spend years running after the wind, only to collapse in exhaustion, wondering why they feel so lost. The answer is simple. They put the blessing before the one who blesses. They looked for fruit but ignored the root. They tried to build a life without the foundation of God. And now they are sinking in the sand of their own ambition. God does not play hide and seek. He is not far off. He is near to those who call upon Him in truth, but He is not found in shallow waters. He is not discovered in the rush. You must go deep. You must be still. You must let go of your pride, your plans, your need to control and seek Him with a heart stripped of pretense. A heart that is not trying to manipulate, not trying to impress, but simply longing to connect with the Creator of all things. There is a fire that comes when you seek God sincerely. It's not a fire that consumes you, it's a fire that refines you. It burns away the impurities, the lies, the fears, the false identities you've clung to. It reveals who you really are, and more importantly, it reveals who God really is. And once you've tasted that refining fire, you'll never settle for lukewarm religion again. You'll never settle for secondhand spirituality. You'll want the real thing. You'll want God, not a filtered version, not a cultural adaptation, but the living, breathing, holy, sovereign God who speaks into the silence and shapes destinies with a whisper. Some people seek God only when trouble comes, but true seekers, the ones who walk in power and unshakable peace, they seek God at all times. In joy and in sorrow, in abundance and in lack, in celebration and in grief, because they understand that God is not seasonal, He is eternal. He is not part of life, He is life. He is not the emergency exit you run to Him before the fire, not just during it. When you live with that kind of reverence, when your heart beats with that kind of pursuit, you begin to experience a level of blessing that can't be quantified. Not always in possessions, but in presence. Not always in outward results, but in inward transformation. Let me tell you the truth that many refuse to accept. There is no shortcut to God's power. There is no substitute for a deep daily walk with Him. You cannot fake spiritual intimacy. You cannot microwave spiritual maturity. If you want to walk in wisdom, if you want to carry divine authority, if you want to live a life that truly matters, you must pay the price of seeking God with your whole heart, not half, not when you feel like it, not when everything else fails. Every day, every breath, every choice. And don't misunderstand, God is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to be present. He is not waiting for your flawless performance. He is longing for your surrendered heart. The beauty of seeking God first is that you begin to realize that He has already been seeking you. He's been waiting at the door, knocking, whispering, drawing you to himself. And once you open that door, once you truly let him in, not just into your schedule, but into your very soul, you begin to live with a clarity, a purpose, a power that no man can take away. But you must protect that pursuit. Because once you start seeking God first, the world will try to pull you back. Distractions will rise. People will misunderstand you. Voices will try to tell you that you're wasting time, that you need to focus on more practical things. But remember this: there is nothing more practical than walking in step with the one who created time itself. There is no greater advantage than hearing from the God who sees the end from the beginning. There is no higher calling than to be known by him, and to know him not just in theory but in intimacy. Seek God first, not just to receive blessings, but to understand how to handle them. Because blessings without wisdom can destroy you. Prosperity without humility can corrupt you. Influence without submission can ruin you. But when you seek God first, he prepares your character before he enlarges your territory. He teaches you how to carry the blessing without the blessing carrying you away. He molds your heart to stay anchored even when the winds of success begin to blow. And hear this with urgency. If your greatest desire is not God, then your heart is aiming too low. You were not created for shallow living. You were not placed on this earth to blend in and drift along. You were created to burn brightly with purpose, to shine with the light of truth, to be so filled with God that the world can't help but notice. That is the power of seeking God first. It transforms you, it elevates you, it marks you, and it causes you to walk in a divine rhythm that no man-made plan can replicate. Some of you have been asking, why hasn't God blessed me yet? Why hasn't he opened that door? Why does it feel like I'm stuck? Could it be that he's waiting for you to seek him more than the answer? Could it be that the delay is not punishment, but preparation? Could it be that he's calling you deeper, stripping away the noise, allowing you to be emptied so that you can finally be filled with him? There is a sacred power that comes when you make God your priority. You become untouchable, no, because life gets easier, but because your spirit becomes stronger. You walk through valleys with courage. You face trials with peace. You endure storms with confidence because you know who walks with you. You know who holds your future. You know who fights your battles. Not because you memorized a formula, but because you've built a relationship. That is what seeking God first accomplishes. It makes you rooted, immovable, steadfast, no matter what comes. So let the world chase fame, let them chase fortune, let them chase fleeting pleasures. But as for you, set your heart on God, make him your pursuit, make him your ambition, make him your obsession, and you will find not only are you blessed, you become a blessing. You become a vessel, a carrier of light, a voice of truth, a warrior of peace, a living witness that when God is first, everything else falls into place, not always as you imagine, but always as it should be. Seek God before you seek approval. Seek God before you seek applause. Seek God before you make a decision, before you move forward, before you plan your future. Because when you get him right, everything else comes into alignment. He doesn't promise a life free from trouble, but he promises a life filled with purpose. He doesn't promise that you won't cry, but he promises you'll never cry alone. He doesn't promise that the road will be easy, but he walks every step with you. There is no greater pursuit than this. To know God, to love God, to seek God first, not just once, not just when it's convenient, but every single day with all your strength, with all your soul, and with every fiber of your being. That is the pursuit that changes everything. That is the journey that never ends. That is the life worth living. There comes a time in every person's life when the noise of the world begins to fade, and the voice of eternity becomes louder. That voice is not shouting, it is calling. It is not demanding, it is drawing. And it is the voice of God whispering to your soul, come closer, come higher, come deeper. Not because God needs anything from you, but because He wants to give you something that no one else can, Himself. And when you truly understand that God Himself is the ultimate prize, every other pursuit starts to look empty. Let the world call it madness. Let them mock the one who rises before the sun to seek God. Let them question the one who walks away from fleeting pleasures and shallow fame. Because the one who seeks God first is not living for the applause of men, they are living for the approval of the Almighty. They are building a life that cannot be shaken, even when the storms of this world try to tear it down, because they have discovered something most never will. That intimacy with God is worth more than anything this world could offer. When you seek God first, you begin to see through different eyes. You don't chase what everyone else is chasing. You don't panic when doors close. You don't lose yourself in disappointment because you know that God orders every step, and even the delays are divine, even the detours are designed, even the silence is sacred. You stop demanding explanations and start trusting the one who sees the end from the beginning. That's the confidence of a soul rooted in God, not arrogance, but assurance. Not pride, but peace. Not control, but surrender. There is something powerful about the person who has made God their one desire. They are not easily swayed. They do not crumble under pressure. They do not bow to idols of popularity, success, or comfort. Because they have tasted something greater, they have touched the eternal, they have encountered the living God, and they know that nothing compares to His nearness. These are the people who change generations, who shift atmospheres, who walk in power not because of who they are, but because of whose they are. They don't seek God for what He can do, they seek Him for who He is. That is the kind of pursuit that heaven honors. Understand this: God cannot be second. He will not share the throne of your heart with your career, your goals, your plans, or your ego. He must be first. Not because He is insecure, but because anything less will destroy you. When God is not first, everything becomes fragile. Relationships crumble under unmet expectations. Ambitions lead to burnouts. Achievements leave you hollow. But when God is first, everything finds its place. You begin to walk in alignment. You begin to hear clearly. You begin to live purposefully. The chaos of life doesn't disappear, but it loses its power to shake you. Seeking God is not a one-time decision, it is a daily discipline. It is waking up and choosing again and again to prioritize what is unseen over what is seen. To invest in the eternal instead of the temporary. To quiet the distractions so that you can hear the whisper. Because God does not compete with noise. He doesn't shout over the chaos. He waits for you to come away to the secret place, to the stillness, to the depth where transformation happens. That is where you receive wisdom for the day. That is where your soul is refilled. That is where the fire is reignited. If your life feels out of control, ask yourself this: who or what have I put before God? Because anything you place above Him will eventually break your heart. Money can disappear, people can disappoint. Health can fail, but God remains. Faithful, constant, unshakable. He is the anchor in your storm, the light in your darkness, the voice in your silence. And when you make Him your first pursuit, your whole life begins to reflect a divine order that no human effort could orchestrate. Some chase fame, others chase wealth, still others chase relationships, trying to fill a hole that only God can fill. But you, if you are wise, you will chase God. You will run hard after Him, not casually, not occasionally, but relentlessly. Because you understand that seeking God is not just about accessing blessings, it is about becoming who you were created to be. You were not made to drift through life. You were not born to chase shadows. You were formed by God, for God, to walk with God. And when you do, everything else begins to align in ways you could never have planned. There is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. One fills your mind, the other transforms your life. One gives you information, the other gives you revelation. And that revelation only comes when you pursue Him with a heart that says, I don't want anything more than I want you. That is the place where pride dies, fear flees, and clarity comes. That is where purpose is birthed and strength is renewed. That is where the broken become whole and the weary find rest not in a change of circumstances, but in a deep, unshakable connection with God. This world is moving fast. Temptation is louder than ever. Distractions are dressed in gold. But don't let them steal your hunger. Don't let them dull your pursuit. Don't let them trade your eternal reward for temporary comfort. You are not like everyone else. You are called to higher ground. You are chosen for something deeper. You are set apart not for comfort but for consecration. And your power will always be found in your pursuit of God. Don't wait for a crisis to seek Him. Don't wait until everything falls apart. Seek Him now, in your youth, in your strength, in your ordinary days. Seek Him when the sky is blue and when the storm clouds gather. Seek Him when it makes sense and when it doesn't. Seek Him with laughter and with tears. Seek Him when the world is watching and when no one is looking. That is the life that brings glory to God. That is the life that echoes into eternity. And remember, seeking God is not a race for perfection. It is a journey of devotion. It is walking with Him, not just on the mountain, but through the valley. It is holding on to Him when nothing makes sense. It is praising Him when the blessings delay. It is choosing faith when fear screams loudest. That is what it means to seek God first. Not with conditions, not with ultimatums, but with total trust. There is a sacred urgency rising in this hour of call from the depths of the unseen, a stirring from the realm where truth lives unshaken. It is the voice of God calling His people back to Himself, not back to religion, not back to performance, but back to relationship, to intimacy, to surrender. There is a hunger growing among those who have tasted everything this world offers and found it all to be dust. The soul cannot be deceived forever. It knows the difference between shallow waters and deep springs. It knows when it's being fed and when it's merely being entertained. And the soul that truly seeks God will not be satisfied with substitutes. It longs for the real, raw, holy presence of the one who created it. God is not interested in being your emergency exit. He is not satisfied with weekend visits and crisis prayers. He is not honored when we treat Him like a spare tire, only acknowledged when something goes flat. God is not a background presence. He is the main thread, the centerpiece, the breath in your lungs, and the fire in your bones. He is not just a part of your life, He is life. Until you understand that every blessing will feel incomplete, every victory will feel hollow, every mountain will eventually turn into another valley. But when God becomes your pursuit, your daily pursuit, your primary passion, then even the valley becomes a sanctuary. Even your struggles turn into testimonies. Even silence becomes sacred. Some of you are waiting for peace to come when the storm ends. But those who seek God first know a greater truth. Peace is not found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of God. You can walk through fire and not be burned. You can sit in the midst of chaos and remain still, not because of who you are, but because of who God is to you. That is the power of pursuit. That is the reward of making God first. Not that the world around you changes, but that you are changed. You become steady. You become unmovable. You become a vessel through which the light of the eternal shines in a world drunk on darkness. Let me ask you this. What does your heart chase when no one is watching? What do you dream of in the quiet? What stirs you to get out of bed in the morning? If it is anything other than God, then you have built your life on shifting ground. Because everything outside of God can and will shake. The economy can shake. Relationships can shake. Health can shake. But God, He never moves. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The soul that clings to Him will never be swept away. God is not impressed by external appearances. He sees the motive behind the movement. He sees the posture behind the prayer. He knows the difference between seeking Him and seeking what He can do. And He rewards those who seek Him not as a means to an end, but as the end itself. The greatest reward of seeking God is not what He gives you, it is that He gives you Himself. And that, my friend, is more than enough. When you make God your first and only pursuit, something supernatural begins to happen. You begin to crave what is holy. You begin to hunger for truth. Your spirit becomes sensitive to His whisper. Your eyes open to His signs. Your heart aligned with His timing. You stop striving and start abiding. You stop performing and start resting. You stop chasing outcomes and start walking in obedience. And in that obedience, you begin to walk in a power that the world cannot imitate and darkness cannot withstand. This world is loud with its invitations. It sells illusions wrapped in glitter. It markets counterfeit purpose under the disguise of achievement. But deep down, you know it's all smoke. It's all mirrors. Nothing can satisfy the soul but God. Nothing. And those who seek Him early, who seek Him earnestly, who seek Him not just with their lips but with their entire being, they are the ones who will walk in a kind of peace that cannot be disturbed, a kind of strength that does not fade, a kind of clarity that cuts through confusion like a sword through fog. To seek God first means to dethrone everything else, to remove idols that may have crept into your life quietly, politely, wearing the mask of ambition, entertainment, relationships, even religion. Anything that takes more of your attention, more of your energy, more of your affection than God, that thing is too expensive for your soul. Let it go. Burn it down. Rip it from the altar of your heart and offer that space back to the one who made you. He will fill it with glory. This is not a call to extremism, it is a call to excellence of devotion. A call to stop giving God your leftovers, a call to stop delaying obedience. A call to wake up from spiritual slumber and return to the fire of the secret place. God is calling a people who will not just visit His presence, but dwell in it. Who will not just pray in crisis, but commune daily. Who will not just speak His name, but live under His authority. That's where the transformation happens. That's where breakthrough is born. That's where blessings no longer control you, because your heart is already full with God. You cannot fake the fruit of seeking God. You cannot manufacture the fragrance of His presence. It is born out of sacrifice, out of discipline, out of choosing Him again and again. Especially when the flesh wants something else. Especially when your emotions rage and your circumstances contradict His promise. That is when your faith becomes fireproof. That is when your worship becomes war. That is when your surrender becomes a signal to heaven that you are ready not just for what God can do, but for who God is. Let the tears fall, if they must. Let the distractions be cut off. Let the noise die down. Let your heart return. For God is not looking for casual followers, He is looking for seekers. Those who will chase after Him as if their very breath depends on it, because it does. Those who will not be content with stories from others, but will say, I must see for myself. I must hear for myself. I must know you. God not secondhand, but face to face. And when you live that way, when you make seeking God your lifestyle, not your last resort, you begin to see His fingerprints in every detail. You hear Him in the silence. You sense Him in the stillness. You know that even when the world shakes, your spirit stands tall because it is rooted not in things, not in people, but in God alone. That is a life of power. That is a life of purpose. That is a life of peace. So I say to you now, with a full weight of urgency and the fire of conviction, seek God first and keep seeking Him, not just with your words, but with your life. Let your days be marked by devotion, not distraction. Let your heart beat for the unseen, not the temporary. Make God your foundation, your compass, your sustainer, and your only true desire. For when you truly seek God above all else, you will walk in a peace this world cannot give, a strength it cannot break, and a purpose it cannot understand. Your life will no longer be driven by the winds of circumstance, but by the steady hand of the Almighty. You will not be tossed about by fear or chained by the hunger for things, because your soul will be anchored in the one who never fails. Do not wait for another storm to remind you of your need for God. Do not wait for loss to make you remember what truly matters. Choose today. Choose now. Choose to seek God with everything you have. And when you do, the blessings will come, but they will not define you. The doors will open, but they will not distract you. Because your heart will be fixed, your spirit will be strong, and your eyes will be forever set on God, the source of all that is good, all that is pure, all that is eternal. Seek Him first. Love Him most. Trust Him fully. And you will lack nothing that truly matters.